Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Lori and I'm doing another video in my car because I was going to do a video outside. I found this really beautiful space where all these amazing trees are on the mountain, but it's too cold. I don't like to be cold. And so I'm in my car again, which I love. I love doing videos in my car. So here's where we are. Today's video is all about energy, consciousness, and emotions, and how can we begin to look at what we are clearing out of our physical, mental, and emotional bodies in a different way, in a perspective that allows us to kind of look at it instead of being attached to what's happening and attached to the trauma and the pain and the challenge of moving emotions through our physical, mental, and emotional bodies. We can begin to look at it as physics, almost energy. And the more we can detach from it, which doesn't mean you don't feel it, okay? Detached from your experience doesn't mean you aren't feeling it. It means that you are observing what's happening from a different lens. So you are both inside your physical body, very grounded down, feeling it, but you are also aware that you are much bigger than what's happening to you. So you are aware of the quantum field that exists within and around you, and that it is all experience, it is all physics, it is all energy, it's all consciousness. It's all part of the human journey, and you are not your emotions. You are not your trauma. It is an experience that is being asked of you to move through, to push through, to clear, to heal. Okay? And so these beings have been showing me in my own life how to move through very, very powerful and intense emotions that I've held within me since I was a very young child. Addictions, trauma, pain. And so since January 1st, they have been showing me and working with me. And so everything I speak about in this video is from my own personal experience. There is nothing I'm sharing with you that I'm just pulling out of nowhere, or I read somewhere, or somebody told me. This is all my own experience. That's the only way I ever share and teach, is through my own experience and what I'm hearing from direct guidance from these beings of light that I work with. And again, the reason I'm sharing this with all of you is to remind you of what you can access, that these beings of light are here for all of us to access so that they can assist us as we are moving this energy through us. We can't do it alone. We don't need to do it alone. And it's challenging to remember that they're here. It's challenging to ask. It's challenging to believe. But I'm telling you from my own personal experience, what I've been feeling and moving through is intense emotions within me that I've had since I was 6 years old, from trauma and pain that have turned into addictions through my entire life, are now being completely released out of me. No longer there. And it's a process. It's not necessarily instantaneous, but it's been happening. It is really real. And that's why I'm sharing this with you. And the more I move through it and eventually come out of it completely, I'll be able to share the entire experience and details with you. But for now, I want to explain energy, consciousness, and emotions, and what is happening in the quantum world with all of this. So I'm going to break it down. When you experience something outside of yourself, a trauma, an experience with somebody, a pain, whether it's a divorce, whether it's abuse, whether it's just something somebody said to you at some point that really injured you, it could be anything. But that experience is a consciousness. It's energy. It holds a specific vibration and it holds a specific consciousness, which is energy. Okay? And so when we begin to live as a human and experience things outside of ourselves, consciousnesses, when we experience that experience, it is felt through an emotion. Multiple emotions, perhaps. So let's just take divorce, for instance. So if you have experienced divorce And let's just say, as a child, let's say you watched your parents get divorced, okay? When you experienced that consciousness, which was divorce, okay, you felt it and it went into your emotional body as an emotion. So you felt it and experienced it as an emotion. This could also be, let's say that you were physically abused or mentally abused or any sort of trauma like that. That trauma, that experience held a consciousness, which is energy. And when you experienced this consciousness, this energy, it moved into you, you felt it, you experienced it as an emotion, which initially moves into your emotional body. So understanding that everything is energy, okay? This consciousness is an experience, which is energy. You felt it. It moved into your emotional body as emotion. Now, once it settles into the emotional body and you begin to feel that experience, depending upon how traumatic that experience was, you will either, this is very unconscious by the way, but you will either experience that feeling, let that feeling move all the way through, so you are able to kind of grab onto the entire emotion, feel it completely, and then it moves out of the emotional body. If the experience, the consciousness, the energy moving into you as an emotion is too intense, it's too painful, you will experience a little bit of that emotion inside your emotional body, but then you will shut it off. It's too much to feel. It's too much to experience. You don't want to feel that emotion. And so what happens is that emotion settles into the emotional body. And once it settles into the emotional body, kind of realizing it's not going anywhere, nestles in, and then it begins, this is energy. Now remember, this is all energy. Emotion is energy, which is consciousness. That's all it is. Okay? So when that energetic kind of ball of emotion starts to nestle into the emotional body, it then begins to move into the mental body. And when it moves into the mental body, it begins to create thoughts and beliefs based on this emotional experience that it had. Okay? So here's an experience that you had, which is a consciousness, which is an energy. You felt that experience. It moved into you, into your emotional body as emotion, holding this consciousness. Okay? Moving into the emotional body, you feel it. If it's a really painful, traumatic experience, the emotion is going to sit in there. That emotion that sits in there is going to move into the mental body. So just imagine that this consciousness is now moving into the mental body. The mental body is going to create limiting beliefs and thoughts and quote unquote truths about you, about the world, about everything based on what it experienced here. Okay? And then once it settles into the mental body, depending upon how intense this experience was, it may move into the physical body. And when it moves into the physical body, that is when you experience illness. That is when you begin to experience disease. That is when you begin to experience pains in physical form. It's all energy. It is not who you are. Okay? It's not who you are. It's an energy. It's a consciousness that travels from outside of you into the emotional body first, then the mental body, then the physical body. There are many people that will have, let's just say there's two people that have the exact same experience in their childhood. One person may be able to just let that energy, let that emotion move right through you. And there's another person that will have that emotion inside and absolutely not be able to get through it and move through it and feel it, okay? So it stays. And then it moves into mental and then it moves into physical. Now, what happens as it moves into the mental is all of these limiting beliefs begin to form, okay? It is very unconscious, and beliefs about the world around you begin to form based on this experience. It's very real. This experience happened. It's a consciousness, right? You moved into the emotional body with it. You felt it. It's real. It's very real. But it's also just an energy. It can move. It can dissolve. It's just an energy. But it creates these limiting beliefs. Beliefs, thoughts are energy. It's all energy. It's all quantum. It's all in this quantum field that we are opening ourselves up to. So what happens unconsciously is as we begin to move through the rest of our life, because that emotion, that consciousness is inside the emotional body, we never completely let it move through, and it's created limiting beliefs within us, we begin to experience other things outside of us that validate that emotion that we didn't feel through, validate the limiting beliefs we have, validate the thoughts we have about ourselves. Okay? So let's say you had some sort of experience in your childhood that created this feeling of abandonment, that you're not loved, you're not lovable, and people are going to leave you. Okay, so that's an experience you had that held that kind of consciousness. When it moved into your emotional body, you felt it as abandonment, as not being safe, as not being lovable. There's something wrong with you, right? So you felt the emotion, it turned into these beliefs about yourself, these limiting beliefs. And what happens is as you begin to move out into your world and experience other things unconsciously because of these limiting beliefs and thoughts, you're going to start to attract the same sort of experiences that validate this, right? And so what happens is you feel these other experiences, they move into the emotional body, you feel the exact same emotions over again. It forms into even bigger ball, right? So here's this fear of abandonment, not being loved, nobody, not having confidence, self-confidence. Perhaps it's rage. There's just this deep, deep rage you have inside of you, or sadness. These experiences moving throughout as you grow up and as you live your life, you're going to start to have other experiences that are going to compound that emotion inside of your emotional body that you haven't felt completely. Okay? Unconscious. And so this kind of emotion, the original emotional feeling that you never moved through completely, begins to build upon itself. The limiting beliefs, the mental body, that aspect of that consciousness in here begins to build upon itself. Okay? It just starts getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then it moves into the physical body. Maybe there's pains, there's ailments, there's disease, there's things that just start happening because of this original emotion that we never moved through completely. Now, when we move into higher states of frequency, when you are a higher being of light, when you experience something outside of yourselves, you understand in a quantum field, in a quantum world, that it's just an energy, that it's just a consciousness. So when you feel it, you allow it to come in, you feel the intensity of it, regardless of how intense it may be. You allow it to move into your emotional body and you just flush it through, right? It's like, oh, here's this really powerful, intense consciousness that is not me, and I'm safe to feel it completely and let it move through you. And then there's nothing that stores within your emotional or mental or physical body, because you understand in the quantum field that it's just energy and consciousness that just needs to be felt and moved through. There's nothing to hold on to, and there's nothing to fear about moving through it and experiencing it. So, what's happening with us right now? If you kind of understand this whole thing, how simple it is, right? It's pretty simple. What's happening to all of us is as we are shifting into higher states of consciousness, as more light is coming into our mental, emotional, and physical bodies, guess what it's doing? It is breaking up these dense, intense consciousnesses that have been inside of us since we were young. People call this shadow work. And the reason they call it shadow work is because it's not been looked at. It has been we have turned our backs on it. It is quote unquote dark because we don't want to shine the light and go into it and look at it, recognize it. What we think will happen is, oh my God, I'm going to have to re-experience that trauma. Not the case. You don't have to re-experience the trauma. But what's happening as light is coming in and break, literally, if you imagine this as energy, okay, that you can't see, so it's hard to start to understand what's happening in this quantum world with us, quantum field, because you can't see it. But if you can imagine that this ball of like dense consciousness, which is felt as emotion, is starting to break up, literally, kind of imagine it as one big puzzle piece, and the pieces are starting to break, and we are starting to feel it, and we're starting to remember, and we're starting to have these memories of the past, which you thought you had resolved or healed in talk therapy, or even had energy work with it, right? And for some reason it's still in there. It's because it's extremely it's nestled, it is in, right? So it takes a lot of time for the human being to begin to allow these pieces to kind of move through, right? It has to break up, and it has to be moved through. So the more light we're bringing in, the more it's breaking it up, and we're feeling it. And what you have to understand is that this is a field, a quantum field, that doesn't have rules. It doesn't make sense. There is no right or wrong, and it's miraculous. It's miraculous. So what that means is you don't have to dive into this painful trauma or really, really deep pain within you. You don't have to go back in and experience it. What you have to do is you have to recognize it. So you have to feel it. Like, oh, look, I'm feeling this complete fear of abandonment. So here we are outside ourselves again, right? Watching it as a consciousness. It's just energy, okay? Based on an experience, which is consciousness that we had, that the human being that you are needed to experience. So you start to recognize, oh my God, I'm feeling that abandonment feeling again. I'm feeling completely alone. I'm feeling so unloved. Or it could be, I am feeling so much hatred for my body, my physical body. I want to punish myself. Whatever it is that's yours that continues to come up, first step is to become acutely aware of it. What is it? What experience did it come from? If you can tap into the experience outside of yourself that it came from, great. If you can't, it doesn't matter. The Beings of Light said it doesn't matter if you can't recognize the actual experience. But what's important is you start to dissect it. Okay? So it's almost like you're becoming a scientist. This doesn't mean that you have to detach. So here's the challenging part, okay? You experience it and you feel it, but you have to stay detached, meaning you aren't your emotions. You aren't your experience. You aren't what's inside of you. It's an energy. It's not you. It's a consciousness that's not you. Now, on the big scheme of things, is it all one? Yes. Energy is all one. And it's an experience you wanted to have to be a part of you, sure. But in terms of releasing it out of your physical, mental, and emotional body, you have to start to understand that it is just an energy. It's a consciousness that is not you. It is inside of you that is asking to be seen, heard, and released, okay? So starting to recognize, oh my God, what is this? This is that same thing that keeps coming up. What you're going to start to do is, well, I'm not doing it right. It keeps coming up. It's going to keep coming up. The more traumatic it is, the more intense it was in your life, okay? The more it's going to come up over and over and over again. And you're not doing anything wrong. That's the consciousness breaking up. That's the energy breaking up. Imagine this consciousness that started when you were 6 years old, that was built upon, that was compounded and compounded and compounded by all these other experiences. And you've got this big, dense, energetic ball inside of you. It's got to break up. It doesn't just break up in one session and then move through you. Okay? It takes a while. And what's happening is it's becoming intense for a lot of us, because as it breaks up, you start to really feel it. And it's okay. You're safe to feel it. You're safe to dive deep into it and feel it, especially if you start to recognize that it's not who you are, that it is just energy. I know I keep saying it over and over again, but it's like we've got to really start to understand this. Okay, so you start to recognize it. You start to dissect it. You start to listen to it. Listen to the tapes and the limiting beliefs that are held within this emotional experience and this emotional space. What is it saying? What does it believe to be its truth? Okay, remember that they're connected. So there's this experience that's moved into the emotional body as emotion, that's moved up to the mental body, which becomes that tape that plays, the thoughts, the belief systems that you have about yourself and the world. Maybe it eventually moves into the physical, okay? But remember, they're all connected. It's a collective consciousness sort of thing that's all one thing, okay? It's not who you are and it's not real. It's real in the sense that, yes, it's happened, but it's all based on an energy that needs to be pushed through you. So listen to the thoughts, listen to the beliefs, listen to that tape. The more you can be aware of this, whatever emotion is coming up, okay? And for a lot of us, it's the same stuff that's coming up. Beautiful, because that's the stuff that's clearing. Let it keep coming up. Don't beat yourself up over the fact that it keeps coming up. Let it come up. And as it keeps coming up, listen. Listen intensely to those thoughts. And listen to them outside of yourself, okay? Remember that you are not your thoughts, which is energy. You are not your limiting beliefs, which is energy. You are not the beliefs that you have about how your world works and who you are. Okay, those are energies that have been created, based on these experiences outside of yourself, this consciousness. So become acutely aware of it, standing outside of yourself, watching it all. You're a scientist now. Imagine yourself as a scientist starting to discover and dive into these pockets of energy, quote unquote, shadow work that you're doing. It's not work, by the way, and it's not shadow, but it is energy that needs to be moved through. Now, my last point, which is the most important piece, which is why I'm talking about this in the first place, is these beings of light, which I've spoken about over and over again, are here to assist us in releasing this, okay? It will take a human being a very, very, very long time, if we do it on our own, to release this stuff, because we have an ego and a really powerful mind, okay? And it's extremely difficult for us to relax and surrender into this and to understand that really it's very simple. All we have to do is get in touch with the emotional block, listen to the limiting beliefs, and then just let it move through. But it takes a long time for the human being to do that. These beings of light, this family of yours, whether it's guides, angels, whatever it is that's around you, are here to make this easier, to assist us in pushing this energy and emotion through you. I've experienced it in miraculous ways. I can't even go into it right now, but it is insane what has been happening to me as I begin to ask them at night to clear whatever specific addictions, emotions, trauma, pain, you name it. You ask them at night, you ask them in the morning, you ask them throughout your day, and you allow them to move in and do it. They will assist you if you ask. Now, your beliefs about it, you have to believe. If you ask them to come in, and you have to be ready to clear it. You have to be ready. This includes addictions, okay? Believe it or not, an addiction is stemming from an experience outside of yourself. Now, it can be complicated because there is a belief system around addictions being in your DNA and passed on to you. And if you believe in the quantum field and that everything is energy, you have to understand that there is something outside of you energetically in a conscious field that will trigger an addiction. If you came into a physical form that has that DNA trait to it, okay? So it's the same thing. An addiction is triggered by an experience that moves into the emotional body that doesn't want to be felt. And when you turn your back on and not resist feeling something, you will turn to something else to allow yourself to escape it. That's an addiction, right? You turn to something else so that you feel like you have to turn to something else so that you won't feel it. Thus addictions. So when you start to clear this energy inside of you, these emotions, the addiction goes with it. So you start to understand that you have to believe, you have to want it. You have to deeply, deeply want to let these emotions, this trauma, this pain, these addictions go. You have to really be ready to let it go. And then you have to believe. You have to know. You have to have faith. Faith, belief, and trust. Knowingness. Faith, belief, trust, knowingness, all the same thing. You have to have that. Because these beings can come in and they can begin to release this in the quantum field. So the beings of light, all these beings of light, they love playing in this quantum realm. They love it because they understand how easy it is. It's so simple to them. It's so easy for them to come in. Literally, I've felt them in the middle of the night push energy through my body. It woke me up as if somebody had done those defibrillators on my heart. You know, when the defibrillator comes and jolts your body? I've felt that in the middle of the night. It woke me up. They jolted this energy, this stuck energy through my body so intensely that I jolted up. I literally jumped. My whole body jolted out of my sheets, woke me up. I said, what the heck was that? And they said, we're clearing energy out of you. Actually, they said, we're clearing this addiction out of you. This addiction that I've been working with them with. And they showed me what they were doing. 15, 20 minutes later, I woke back up because they continued to push it through. It was around my, my feet. I think it was down by my legs, my knees. And then they pushed it through again, and it was another jolt. It's all energy. And so they will come in lovingly. They love to work in this realm, and they'll push that energy through. It's actually that simple. Now, in my case, it takes months because I have to believe. I have to continue to believe that it's released, that I'm healing myself, that I'm clearing it all through me. I have to believe that in all of my heart and all of my knowingness. Otherwise, I will bring it back. I will bring the addiction back. I will bring the emotion back. That's how powerful the human mind is. So no matter what these beings do, if you don't believe in all your knowingness that what you're asking them to do will actually happen, is actually happening, it won't. It won't. The mind works in the conscious and quantum field as well. It has just as much power as these beings have, okay? And your beliefs are energy. Your beliefs are consciousness. So if this consciousness, if this energy field is more powerful than the ability, than the energy coming in to clear the emotion, it's not going to happen. So if you can remember that this is all quantum fields, energy is all in the world, in the realm of not being able to see, okay? And that's all this is. Here's an experience, consciousness, energy. You feel it. You feel it as an emotion. So you experience it, I should say not feel it. You experience this as an emotion. The emotion moves into the emotional body felt. If it's too intense, it snuggles in, moves into the mental body, creates thoughts, beliefs, and your whole life starts to kind of revolve around these things. You start unconsciously creating other experiences that validate this emotion that you don't want to feel, and it just perpetuates itself. We are moving through the ascension process. Light is coming in. Frequencies of higher dimensional frequencies are breaking this up finally so that we can clear it out of our body so that we can hold more light. And so as these things are moving through, we have guidance and beautiful beings that can assist us in pushing this through faster. That's simple. So what do? We get aware of what it is inside of us. We direct these beings of light to that emotion, to that space within us. And we say, this is what I want. Get very aware of the limiting beliefs and that tape that plays that's associated with this so that you can witness it in your mind. You can witness what it's saying to you, and you can ask these beings to come in and clear it over and over and over and over again until it's gone. Some of you will have miraculous healings. when you start to do this. I promise you this is real. I promise you this works. You've got to believe. You've got to have faith and knowingness and trust that it's happening and that it's real. Problem is we can't see these beings. We can't feel these beings. We don't necessarily even, know that they're there. We don't know their names, any of that. It doesn't matter. Don't worry about that. Please don't worry about that. Just start asking them at night. Please, all the time, over and over. Don't stop just because you think it's not working. The only reason it's not working is because there is either a conscious or an unconscious part of your mind that's not allowing it. That's all. So the more you do it, the easier it will become. Begin to ask them to release it in your sleep. Clear it. Get really specific on what you want cleared. And do it over and over and over again until it's gone. It can be that easy. You don't have to struggle through it. You don't have to struggle through it. Now, it's not fun. It's not enjoyable when we feel these things. It's not enjoyable for me when I start really feeling this disgust for my body and really feeling, there's days where I just feel really gross within my own physical body. I feel fat. I can feel these thoughts of that hatred for my physical body that I've had since I was 6 years old, right? That will come up, although it's gotten extremely quiet as it's been healed. But you have to know that this isn't going to happen overnight, okay? So keep asking. I promise you it will work. I promise you. If you believe and you ask these beings, even if you don't know who they are, especially at night, all you have to do is just lay in bed, eyes opened or eyes closed, and ask, just say to yourself, please come in. You don't even have to say who they are. Please come in and release, clear, heal this emotion, this trauma, this experience, this person, whatever it is, and say it in your own words. Say it in your own words. Say it however feels comfortable for you. It's a new way of looking at emotion and what's happening with us. And you don't have to be attached to it and really sit in it, and really wallow in it, and make it this really big ordeal. It's not. It's not a big ordeal. It really isn't. It's painful. It hurts sometimes. It's definitely not fun. It definitely requires courage, but you've got to walk through it. You've got to walk through it. You've got to start moving, breaking it up, feeling it, and letting it move through you and asking for assistance and beginning to recognize that it's a consciousness, an energy, and it's not who you are. It's in a quantum field that you can't see or sometimes even understand. And it's miraculous when they come in and heal it. It's miraculous. This is who we are. As multidimensional beings, this is who we are. We are waking up to who we are and the power we have within us. The more we begin to recognize and realize that we're energetic beings, and if you recognize and know that you're an energetic being, then you understand and recognize that everything inside of you that you've ever felt, experienced, or had move through you is energy, including emotion, including trauma, including pain. See it as an energy. See it moving through you. I think that's it. Okay, I hope this resonated with you in some way. I hope you can take pieces of it, nuggets of it, and begin to use it in your everyday life. I hope it's settled somewhere within you. I love you all for watching this video and for being here on this planet at this time, moving through this. We're being asked to look at everything in a different perspective. stepping out of the old 3D paradigms and dense ways of seeing who we are and beginning to look at it in a much higher frequency, because that's who we are. So as we move through everything that we're moving through, we have to understand that it's all energy and that we're energy. It's all light. So it's all consciousness. And it's simple. It's really simple when you break it down. It doesn't have to be so complicated. Humans try to make things so complicated. It doesn't have to be complicated. So know that you're not alone. We're all going through it. We're all going through it together. And you will move through it. It will move through you. So let me know if this was helpful. Let me know if you start to do it. Let me know if anything happens in the next couple of weeks or months as you begin to work with these beings and ask them. I'm sending you all so much love, and have a beautiful rest of your day or rest of your evening, wherever you are in the world. All my love to you.